Lang mare.
Live connected sa.
Okay, ATC is going live. Oh, tukudo.
Dugi na aja.
Okay, Gotsusha. Tukudurwa. Nye Gotsusha ka. All right, so hello everyone, Tashi Delek. All right, just checking. Sorry, first of all, we want to say sorry to everyone who have been waiting for the live show to start at 1 p.m. We have been having a serious technical difficulty, which is why we couldn't come online as scheduled at 1 p.m. But never mind, we are all here now. So I want to say Tashi Delek to you. This is Kinzom from Australia Tibet Council, and I am delighted to welcome you to a second episode of Cook for Tibet series, special online series to bring you and share with you our Tibetan food culture with our friends and supporters from across Australia and around the world, in these difficult times. So last week we did the first episode where I had the great pleasure of sharing my Tibetan momo recipe with you, and today I am very pleased to introduce to you a very special couple from Melbourne. Sonam, please give us a wave, and supported by Sonam's husband, Lobsang La. So Sonam La and Lobsang La are here with us today to share a very special Tibetan recipe. So I want to hand over to Sonam La. Sonam La is a passionate Tibetan cook. She has a young baby sitting near her in her house, but she has kindly offered to join us in this special episode. Sonam La grew up in Australia. She was born to Tibetan refugee parents in Switzerland and moved to Australia as a young girl. But of course, her Tibetan culture and Tibetan, especially her food culture, has been has been an important part of her while growing up in Australia. And she is an amazing cook. And those of you who are on Instagram, you should actually check her out on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is pinga.eats. So please go on Instagram and check her out after you finish this show. So without much ado, I want to hand over to Sonam La.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Just to give a bit more of an info about myself, as Tenzin has mentioned, I was born in Switzerland and then I grew up over here in Australia. So from a young age, I'd love helping my mum cook Tibetan food at home, especially momos, which Tenzin did demonstrate last episode, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as we do. So I think generally, food does play a very big part in, I think, every culture. And so today, through food, I hope we're able to connect and discuss a bit more about the Tibetan community over here in Victoria, in particular by Lobsang. So maybe, do you want to add anything before I get started?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. Hello, everyone. I'm Tashit Delek. My name is Tenzin Lobsang Khangsar. I'm Sonam's husband, and I'm the one who's going to test her food, and I've been testing her food all the time. So she cooks very deliciously. And I've been living in Melbourne for the past 12 years, and I've dedicated my life to serve for the Tibetan in Australia, in particular in Melbourne, and also to promote the Tibet cause in Australia. So I recently joined the ADC board. So that's I'm quite excited about it. So I'll get it pass to Sonam so that she can continue her cooking. Sure.
So then, should we just start then, I think?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I've just turned the oven on to 170 degrees. So I'd recommend you do the same for those who are cooking with us. And so the main ingredient for today, I think everyone can see, is Tsampa. So just so everyone knows, Tsampa is uniquely Tibetan. It is roasted grounded barley. And just a bit of a nutritional information about it. It does contain a very low, it does have a very low calorie content, and it contains at least 2 times the fiber of normal flour. So it not only keeps you energized, it does keep you full. It keeps you fuller for longer. So then I'm using the kitchen aid today. I'm just going to pull it out. I've made this cookie a few times already, and if you don't have a kitchen aid, you can use, just a bowl and a whisk, or even a fork. This recipe is really simple, but at the end, you'll have delicious Tsampa cookies. So to start off with, we're going to add our butter, which is 150 grams. So we're going to add the butter. I'll use my spatula.
While she's doing this, I will say a few words in Tibetan for the Tibetan viewers. Tashit dele lenge so ani tanda lobsangi ani dinde onjo the ADC onjo the ADC the begin na budun hengang shuore andi budun hengang gi ta tingsan onjo de toyi name dikembe onjo tanda jaga gyujine khalas the swage da fixi gi ani dingala budun da the gyujibe shibare ani sonjo da sonam la gi ta chambe gi ani khapse suna bore shui.
With the butter, just make sure it is at room temperature. Then I'm adding in sugar, and sugar is half a cup. Then we're just going to bake the butter and the sugar on a medium speed for a few minutes. So today's recipe is more of a sweet. It is more on the sweeter side, but generally, for those viewers who don't know much about Tsampa, traditionally we do have it a bit more. We have it. We eat it a bit more in the savory. Just so you guys know, normally we either have it in. This is called chamdu. This is called chamdu. And this is basically what I give my son on a daily basis for breakfast. So what it is just Tsampa, hot water, and then a dash of olive oil. So he absolutely loves it. I love it as well. And then in regards to something called Tsampa, that is basically the adult version of champu. So I like to use either chicken or beef broth. And then you just add a bit of Sichuan pepper, a bit of salt, and you add your Tsampa, and then you whisk it. So I recommend Tsampa for when you're feeling a bit run down, or if you just need that little boost of energy. It is really good. Then the other way we normally do Tsampa is through bar. So these little snacks here. And bar is again very easy to make. You just add Tsampa, some hot tea. You add either a bit of sugar or salt, up to you, and then a bit of butter and a bit of dried cheese, and then you basically mold it with your fingers and shape them into these little logs, or you can shape them into balls. And they're a really good snack, especially for your kids. You know how they need energy, so that is the way we normally eat them. Now I'm going to increase the speed a bit more. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to add in the eggs. So I'm just breaking an egg into the bowl. Just one egg. In the recipe, I did say 2 eggs. That was previously I had smaller size eggs. These ones are the extra large ones. I'm just adding 1 egg. Then we're going to add vanilla essence. vanilla essence is just 2 teaspoons. Then we're just going to spin it with more. I just want to show everyone. So the dumplings that we're making today are basically shaped like these. So they don't spread as much. They're a bit more cake-like in regards to their texture, and they're quite soft. If you, for example, if you don't eat dairy, or you don't have eggs, or you don't want to use eggs, you can omit, and then your cookies will spread a bit more, and they're a bit more to the crunchier side. So if you like your cookies crunchy, omit the eggs. That's perfectly fine. Let's turn off this thing. Then we're just going to add the tsampa. So this is 1.5 cups. And we're going to also add a bit of baking powder. So this is just 1/4 teaspoon. And then we're just going to mix it and low steam. And today I do talk tsampa in regards to it being more what we eat in Tibet, but it also plays quite a significant role in regards to our religion, in regards to our politics. Maybe Lobsang, if you'd like to elaborate on that.
So the religious significance is like, in Tibetan, do like a lot of religious ceremony or rituals. So the Tibetan monks specialize, they use tsampa to make some homes to practice their religious. And also we also use for offering as well. So we also use in different religious ceremony. So then, political point of view, I guess Tsampa eater, which is is separate from the Chinese. So we are like different nationality. Tibetan, we call it Tsampa eater. So basically, I read a story that when China occupied Tibet, at the time the Chinese went first into Tibet. At the time, they have not used eat tsampa, so they actually don't know how to eat tsampa, so they chop basically. So this is clearly shows that the Tibetans are separate from China. And then also during the I think that's one.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add on. So 2 years after the Chinese occupied Tibet, a lot of the Tibetan resistance leaders, they wanted to unite Tibet, and what they ended up doing was in an independent Tibetan language newspaper called the Tibet Mirror, they actually published a letter calling for revolt. And what it mentioned was, we, the Tsampa eaters, tuba wearers, dice players, raw and dried meat eaters, followers of Buddhism, Tibetan language speakers, we must make the effort to end the occupation. So through that, they united the Tibetans, and Ajahn, please feel free to add more as well. Through that, they united the Tibetans, and then a few years after that, in 59, the Tibetan uprising happened, where thousands of Tibetans gathered outside the Potala. So we'll just go back to this. I'm just going to beat it a bit more. I would recommend using a spatula just to scrape down the sides. Just a few minutes.
So while Sonamla is getting ready with that, Lobsang, would you like to say a few words about the Tibetan community in Australia?
Sure. So to give a bit of a background about the Tibetan community in Australia, I think the first settler in Tibetan in Australia, I think it's in the 70s. So the first few Tibetans have come to Melbourne and Sydney. So since then, the Tibetans start living in Australia, and I think the majority of the Tibetan population increased after the humanitarian program started, and which was, golden opportunity for the Tibetan to resettle in Australia, introduced by the Australian government. So I think in the late 90s, this first group of Tibetans, under this program has started to come to Australia. And since then, the population has kept increasing. And at the moment, I don't know exact figure, but about 3,000 Tibetans are in Australia. So in Melbourne, we have now nearly between 700 to 800, I guess. And then in Sydney, 1,500 or 2,000 in between that range. And then rest are scattered other part of the Australia. So I think the Melbourne Tibetan community or the Tibetan community of Victoria is the oldest Tibetan community. Like our community was established in 1985, and then the community also registered with the Australian government. So most of the Tibetans who come to Australia, they are former political prisoners, I think, and their families. I think 70 to 80% of the Tibetans who come to Australia are former political prisoners. So that's why I actually privileged and honored to be serving them. I feel always, great to support and help the, these people. And unfortunately, the Tibetan who living in Australia, they came from Tibet and they never had education or never, been to school. So that's why, they are facing the language barrier, and that's why they can't actually express their feelings. And so that's why they are actually in a daily basis, they are struggling. So, so that's what somehow the Tibetans are basically, the Tibetans in Australia, we are very hardworking people, and we are in different sectors. Everyone is working in the different sectors, such as nursing home or supermarket, or there are and some are also nurse, and every field we are working. And the one good thing about or unique about the Tibetan is very passionate and very committed and sincere with our work, and so that's why many employers love Tibetans.
I think just to add on to that, His Holiness always states, the Tibetan culture is a culture of non-violence, is a culture of peace, and most importantly, compassion. So I think a lot of Tibetans who do come to Australia, once they start working, they do go more into the health sector. So working as aged care workers, working as disability support workers, nurses. And I think with the current situation, they're doing such an amazing job. Not only to all the Tibetan health workers, the cleaners, the grocery workers, but everyone in Australia. Yeah, so I think, big round of applause. But anyway, so I think I've already mixed everything, and it is a bit more tacky in regards to how it feels. So what we're going to do is now we're going to roll little balls. So I've washed my hand already. Yeah, Lobsang can give me a hand. I've got a spoon. Yeah. So what we do is basically you can grab a I hope there are a few of you guys, making it along with us. You can grab a teaspoonful of the Tsampa dough. And you just use basically your palms, and you roll them. And as I've mentioned, it is quite a wet dough, but that's all right. If you find it too wet, you can dust a bit of Tsampa over your palms if you like. And then we're just going to continue making that. If any of the viewers have any questions, just let us know as well. And
any questions?
On the mention though, for those who are in Australia, I think a few people were asking before where they can actually buy Tsampa. So Topchuma, who is the wild yak owner, he actually sells Tsampa, and I understand he also delivers it. He delivers it nationwide, all around Australia. So if anyone wants to buy Tsampa, just go over to the Wild Yak Restaurant website, and I think there's more information on that. Continue making a bit more, and if you've got kids, this is also a good way for them to get involved in Tibetan cooking, especially baking.
And Lobsang preparing the dough. Just wanted to add a comment here because, as you all know, all these live webinars have become very popular over the past few weeks. As everyone started working from home. So as a result of this, I just wanted to, warn all our friends and supporters and viewers here or watching this show, to be very careful about, scams that are happening around, especially on Facebook. Last week, what has happened with an Australian NGO while they were doing a live show like this, as the charity spokesperson was talking about the campaigns, a scammer actually jumped online on that Facebook live event and started asking for donations, pretending to be the staff member from the organization. So please be careful. There are lots of scammers out there taking advantage of the rising popularity of live shows on Facebook and other platforms on social media channels. So from Australia Tibet Council, I want to assure you that we won't be putting our donation links in the comment sections. That's where scammers can participate in these live shows and pretend to be from our organization and sharing links. And unfortunately, some of the supporters of that organization fell for that scheme, thinking that it was a legitimate ask. So please be careful. Don't click on links that come in the comment section. That said, for those of you who want to get Tsampa, you can do that. For our Australian audience, as Sonam just mentioned, Topchen is the owner and chef of Wild Yak restaurant in Sydney. And he's based in Melbourne. He runs the Wild Yak restaurant in Sydney. His family also runs the Wild Yak restaurant in Sydney. So Topchen has been making Tsampa for the last 17 years. And he sells the Tsampa to Tibetans across the country. So he'll be more than happy to post Tsampa to you wherever you live in Australia. So please visit his website, wildyukrestaurant.com.
Do you see any comments down there? I can't see any. If anyone's got any questions about Tibet or regarding this cookie.
So yeah, at the moment, there are no questions. It seems the voice quality is not the best, but I'm not sure how we can fix this at this stage.
Last one, nearly done.
Thank you, Ellie. Alice Ribush is saying the sound is okay. So it looks like the sound has improved.
If anyone has got any question, otherwise I'm happy to say more on Tibet and also issues that Tibetans are facing in Australia.
What I'll quickly do, I'll just quickly finish this off and we'll pop it in the oven. So once you basically mold your balls of dough, you just grab a little fork and dust it in a bit of Tsampa, and then you just gently press the biscuit down. just need you to open the oven for me in a few minutes, Lobsang. Nearly.
Sonam, it looks very beautiful.
Thank you.
Going to do that after we finish the show.
Once I think people buy Tsampa from Wildcat, then they can make these good. Okay, we're just going to pop it in the oven now. And then it just goes in the oven for roughly about 15 minutes until the sides turn golden brown. But just keep an eye out for it, depending on what size your biscuits were. Yes.
Right. I've been the community leader or the president of the Tibetan community of Victoria for the last 2 years, and then also vice president in the past. So there's a there's one main issue that majority of the Tibetan, I think it's a wide everywhere the Tibetans are facing, especially with the older generation. That's their details information, especially with their date of birth incorrect, which was documented in their IMI card. So this is how it happened is when they first escaped from Tibet to India, and then when they arrived in India, they have to go with the Indian system, and with that, they have to reduce a certain age to be able to obtain the registration certificate. And they've been advised, and they're newly arrived, they have no idea, and so whatever the advice been given to them, they are just followed, to get their registration certificate and to stay legal in India. And hence, many Tibetans have to reduce their age, either to fit into adult school in India and also to get the legal document called RC in India. And so they never realize, how important important is to correct their date of birth until they come to Australia. And after coming here, now they are nearly 65 years to get the pension, but now according to document they are 45 years, or so they are lacking the access of this age pension services and other health services. So therefore I've been advocating on this. I've been working along with the Kindumla and Tibetan government in exile or Central Tibetan administration to get some documents, and also collecting documents with the here from the Tibetans, and then working with the few lawyers and parliamentarians. So hopefully, we can fix this issue in Melbourne. And if we are successful here, then I'm approaching to other states to fix this issue. And this is one of the major problems that Tibetans are facing. Kindumla, do you want to add anything on this matter, or?
Sorry, I had muted myself. So Lobsang explained the issue quite clearly. So unfortunately, a lot of former political prisoners, even when they reach the pension age, they are not able to receive the benefits from the government, purely because of this bureaucratic problem that they have been facing for a long time. So hopefully, by working with our local members of parliament, we will be able to encourage our government to fix this this problem, because it means a great deal to the Tibetans who live in Australia. All right, so how is it going, Sonamla?
Yes, I think we still just about 10 or so minutes until the cookies are done. But they seem to be looking quite nice. You can smell that nutty Tsampa aroma coming out of the oven. So that's always really nice. But I think about 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So Sonam, like you were born in Switzerland in Europe, and then you came here as a young girl. And I believe when you were growing up, we didn't have a big community in Australia, right? So how come, you still are able to maintain a very strong connection to your Tibetan roots? You speak very good Tibetan. You are an amazing Tibetan cook. So, what has inspired you with all this amazing cooking?
I think, to be honest, with the cooking, it started off when I was young with my mum. So, in the kitchen when she'd make momos or shabale, we'd always help out, and we were just waiting for those momos to finish steaming so that we could gobble them down. So I think the first part of it started off with, that connection we had with food. And then while we were making, because Tsampa does, not Tsampa, momos does take quite a while to make. While we were making those, my mum then would, relate back about her life over in Tibet. She'd be like, "While we make this, over in Tibet, we used to do it this way," or, I remember the last time I had momos with my parents was when I was such a young age, and she'll tell us the stories of her life in Tibet, and then escaping to India, and listening to those stories, and then also attending their weekend Tibetan classes, which at that time, if I remember correctly, was basically just in our garage, and there was just like a handful of us. But my mum's stories, attending those classes, and then our dad taking us to demonstrate outside the Chinese consulate, to all the Tibetan gatherings, my brother attending the peace marches. I think all of those is what has kept me connected, to my Tibetan identity and my Tibetan culture. And maybe, I'm not sure, Kinzum, I don't think you may know this, but my dad, he also sent, my parents, they sent us to TCV, both to TCV Lower and Salagri. So I stayed there for, I think, about 7 years, and that's where, I learned my Tibetan. I know how to speak and write in Tibetan now, which is always, I think, a proud thing that I can say. So yes, I think it is definitely my dad, who has kept me grounded to my Tibetan identity and roots.
I didn't know that you went to TCV. So yeah, that's amazing. If Tibetan families living in Australia or in the West, at some stage, if they can send their children to schools in India, I think that can really help them with the language and the culture. Yes. So I think your parents made a very good investment there.
I think I am, very, very grateful for that decision that they took. But I'm also very grateful for TCV, for all the teachers, all the friends that I made over there. I think it was an experience that has made me who I am. And then just the other thing I also wanted to add was, from a young age, my dad, it's very similar to Lobsang as well. He's been a very passionate, Tibetan activist for nearly his whole life. He's been an MP of the Tibetan government in exile. He's been a representative of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. So he's always, he's been a community leader for many years. So he's always led that by example. And so he's always, reminded us that no matter what you do, you always need to try and do your best, for the Tibetan cause. And I think I do try as much as I can. And I think I'll definitely impart that same knowledge down to our son. Yeah. Let me just check on the time. I'm just going to quickly check the cookies.
Yeah. While Sonam's checking cookies, and I just want to add about the what we are facing today. The pandemic, the virus, coronavirus. So I call it CCP virus. It's deliberate, and we know China quite well, and this been doing deliberately. And to control the world. So that's what I feel, and so we've been telling the world about this for the last 60 years, that China has been persecuting, China lies and Tibetan dies. Now the China lies and the whole world is dying. So that's what I think most of the viewers are Tibet supporters, and they know about the CCP, Chinese Chinese Communist Party. But those who are new to this, you should research about the Chinese Communist Party, and then make sure you know them quite well, and then advocate for the Tibet cause. And Tibet cause is not just the Tibet cause; it's the cause for the justice and cause for the innocent people who've been suffering for the last 60 to 70 years. So please, I encourage everyone to please support for the Tibet cause. To do these, the Australian Tibetans for you to support the Tibet cause, as Kim Song is the executive director here, and so she will lead the Tibet cause, and you can support through going to ADC page, and through that we can work together for the freedom of Tibet. Kim Song, do you want to add more on this?
So yeah, thank you for that, Lobsang. So I just want to mention, those of you who are not on our mailing list, please do sign up to the ATC mailing list, because as you know, we have a lot of work to do for Tibet, and one of the upcoming campaign activities that is coming up is the Tibet Lobby Day. Many of you would know that every year we take a group of young Tibetans to Canberra to visit the Australian Parliament and lobby members of Parliament. So unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, we are not able to go to Canberra in person, but that doesn't mean that we will stop our work. The work, no matter, what happens, all these issues, whether it is the Tibet issue or action for climate change or justice for Indigenous people in Australia, all these issues remain as important as ever, and we must continue our work. So we are not going to Parliament, to the Parliament in Canberra in person, but we are going to do instead of doing a Tibet Lobby Day, we will have a week-long Tibet Lobby Week, online meetings where members, Australian Tibet supporters and members of the Tibetan community across the country can meet with their local MPs face-to-face in an online video meeting. So please sign up to our mailing list and register your interest in joining our Lobby Week, which will take place in the last week of June.
Yeah, so to add on this, I've been participating in this Tibet Lobby Day for many years, and it's very especially for the the younger generation, or the Tibetan youth growing up in Australia. You must participate in this Tibet Lobby Day. It will give you a very insightful knowledge and also good experience about your future, and also you will learn about Tibet as well. So I will encourage you to please participate in this Tibet Lobby Day. It's this year it seems that we are doing it virtually, but usually we go to Canberra.
It's just been just under 15 minutes, so I'm just going to take the cookies out and let them cool down for a bit.
So I'm just looking at the comments, just looking at if anyone has asked any questions. It seems there is no question coming at this stage. A lot of Tibetans and supporters are watching. I can see around 48 are online as we speak.
Tibet Council yana budin hengangi ani budi shuwe to ne de vegi hala Tsampa yo wata to ranzu tumo mai be Tsampa ki gyuje ne ani aje ti Tsampa ki kapse swe dang de ni de ni sanda sunam la ki ani de chi obri nangore ani songzang da singe ba singe henge changma ani shugyu ndi da onzu Tsampa gyuje ne de swe dang Tsampa mai ba geche de ranzu ki budin ni jirasiya da budin ni kyabrasiya di to chadure di da Tsampa di angaro incident la yansi 아랑도 전환 체험해주 원인데 지레스 나디 춘도
We just wanted to say hello and hello and just to everyone who's just joined us. We are coming to the end of the video very soon. But Ajala, there's Tenzin Lobsang has actually written, he has commented, can we write to MPs and senators on the Pension Lama release lobby? I have already started some mails to Queensland Federal Senator.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that, because this will be one of the key issues that we are raising with Australian political leaders this year. As many of you know, that this year marks the 25th anniversary of the disappearance of the Pension Lama. So yes, definitely, this will be issues. Thank you for that comment.
And then I think also Alison Rebo, she's commented, no Tsampa on Phillip Island, so I'm making them with spelt flour. Just let Alison, how are you? Then Ajad, I think this is a question more to you, Lobsang. Vasily has commented, has Australia gone forward yet on the reciprocal access to Tibet legislation like they have in the US?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question, Vasiliki. Yes, so this is an issue that we have been working on since last year. Last year, we made quite a strong foundation, getting in touch with all the members of the parliament and meeting around 50 MPs and senators on Tibet Lobby Day. All of them have understood the issue very well and expressed individual MPs have expressed strong interest in supporting this proposed legislation. Out of these 50 MPs, a couple of them, two to four people actually, two I can name, the co-chairs of the All-Party Parliamentary Friends of Tibet, or the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tibet. Warren Inge and Susan Templeman, Warren Inge from the Liberal Party and Susan Templeman from the Labour Party, they are very keen to co-sponsor this legislation. So again, because of this pandemic, everything has been kept on hold, but we hope that this year we will see some movement on this issue.
And then Tenzin, she has just commented to Sonam, to me, can we bake a bread out of Tsampa? With the Tsampa, with bread, I think with bread and cake, where you do actually need, the actual bread or the cake to rise up. Tsampa actually doesn't have that much gluten in it. So if you do want to make bread or cake with Tsampa, I'd recommend actually using a bit of Tsampa, but also using a bit of normal flour with baking powder. So do like not half and half, but maybe a quarter of Tsampa plus 3/4 of the other flour. You can give that a try. If you do, please definitely let us know as well. I think it is good if we incorporate a bit of Tsampa into everything, because it is delicious, it's healthy, and it's really good for you.
For those of you who are joining in late, Sonamla is making Tsampa cookies. She's giving a very, quite a modern twist to a very Tibetan ingredient. Tsampa, as you will know, is uniquely and very proudly Tibetan. It's the staple food of Tibet. Tsampa has a huge kind of significance in our life, political life, cultural life, religious life. And, on day one, since a baby is born, the first thing the baby will be fed is Tsampa. It's highly nutritious, highly delicious. So you can see Sonamla coming out with hot, baked cookies. So I'll hand over to Sonamla.
So normally I would let them cool down a bit longer, but just so you guys can see, these are the cookies. And like other cookies, they don't actually spread out as much, but that's just the nature of Tsampa. So what I like to normally do then is lastly, just slightly top it up with a bit of icing sugar. And for those of you out there who also use Tsampa, to make other recipes, please do let us know as well. Sharing is caring. Sharing. If you share those recipes, I think we can empower Tsampa a bit more in regards to it being a unique ingredient. Okay. Yeah. So, and that is basically it then. You want to try one? Lobsang's the one who gets to try out everything. Yeah, so I think that is how I make Tsampa cookies at home. As I've mentioned, if you guys do use Tsampa, please share it with everyone, so that we can let everyone know about our unique Tibetan ingredient. Anything else you want to add?
So thank you, Sonam. It's beautiful. It looks really beautiful. I'm going to make that straight away after we finish this show. So those of you who have just seen Sonam bake this cookie, if you're wondering where you can get your Tsampa, you can do that from the Wild Yak restaurant in Melbourne. Just visit their website and contact Topchenla, the owner and the chef of that restaurant. And then, check out Sonam's Instagram page, where you will see, all the wonderful creations she has been making in a kitchen that you can see there. So her Instagram page is Pinga.eats, right? Pinga is a Tibetan word for siblings or cousins, Pingya.eats. So you will see more of Sonam's creations from her kitchen. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Once again, sorry for the late start. As you know that, we have been having major issues with Zoom and how, Zoom integrates into Facebook, but also, Zoom has recently come in the news for serious security issues. So we are in the process of, learning how to move to a new safe technology, which is why we were a bit late in starting this online show. And that said, I'm pleased that we were able to go ahead with this show. And then we'll be back on Monday evening, Australian time, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, where we will have the world-renowned Buddhist master, Buddhist meditation teacher and master, Mingyur Rinpoche, joining us to talk about how to calm the mind in the time of the coronavirus. So please tune in on Monday evening, 7 p.m. So thank you, everyone. Sonam and Lobsang, do you have anything more to add?
I just wanted to say lastly, Tenzin and ADC, thank you for having us on today's episode. We hope everyone watching has enjoyed it. And for those for all of us who are staying at home, it's important to continue staying safe, healthy, but most importantly, positive, because everything will get better.
Thank you for that lovely message.
Australia
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone.